Good morning. The World Bank says Nigeria's COVID-19 Action, Recovery and Economic Stimulus (NGCARES) program will enable each state to earn at least $20 million within the space of 2 years. The task team leader of NGCARES World Bank, Professor Folusho Okumadewa, on the sidelines of the launch of the NGCARES program technical workshop, said the program is the federal government's initiative with support from the World Bank to mitigate the effects of the COVID-19 pandemic. Vice President Yemi Osinbajo is in Dubai, United Arab Emirates, to participate at the World Liquefied Petroleum Gas Association Forum, where he will be delivering the keynote address. State House correspondent Gideon Ifade reports.
Vice President Yemi Osinbajo and his entourage are here being received on arrival by the head of the Nigerian consulate in Dubai, Abu Muhammad. World leaders, top government ministers from several countries, and chief executives of major multinational corporations in the liquefied petroleum gas sectors will be attending the week-long 2021 World LPG Week from Sunday through Thursday this week under the auspices of the Paris-based World LPG Association. The Vice President will be speaking on Tuesday at the forum, which is expected to attract over 2,000 delegates from 72 countries on the theme of the LPG Week, Energizing Tomorrow. Senior Special Assistant to the President of Media and Publicity in the Office of the Vice President, Laulu Akonde, speaks on what this means for Nigeria.
An event such as this, where you have, people around the world, over 72 countries, the industry experts, the stakeholders, public sector, dealing with the issue of liquefied petroleum gas, it creates an opportunity, for us to also interact on a global level to ramp up, productivity in our own country, so that our people will have more access to energy at an even more affordable rate. So this is important for our people to get into the conversation, to open our doors wide, to the engagements and even the investment in that particular sector, all for the purpose and the benefit of our people.
The Vice President is expected to back in Abuja on Thursday.
The unveiling of Nigeria's investment opportunities by President Muhammadu Buhari at the Global Exposition in Dubai has started paying off, with the Polish business community expressing commitment to invest in the nation's economy. These followed the signing of a memorandum of understanding between the Polish Chamber of Commerce and Nigeria-Arabia Gulf Chamber of Commerce, as well as the expression of interest by a Dubai-based consortium intending to invest in Nigeria's mining, agriculture and telecommunications sectors.
Nigeria's pavilion at Expo 2020 clearly shows why we remain the most viable and attractive investment destination in Africa. Our location, our natural resources, our population, and our regulations are there for all to see. Nigeria on its way to becoming a leading industrial and trading nation in Africa. I look forward to welcoming you all to Nigeria very soon.
Nigeria is a great economy. Reforms today is the ball game.
We look forward to strengthening cooperation with Nigeria to ensure greater economic progress and build a stronger economic future for both countries.
With Expo 2020, we hope to build on existing partnerships between our two countries while also further developing our trade relations, aiming to surpass the $1.3 billion in non-oil bilateral trade achieved in 2020, thereby benefiting both of our nations.
Total trade between Nigeria and her trading partners across the globe stood at $13.284 billion in the third quarter of 2021. Data released by the Statistician General of the Federation, Simon Harry, says total export trade value was $5.13 billion and import trade value was $8.153 billion in the third quarter, indicating a negative trade balance of $3.023 trillion naira. The statistician general explained that the high import was majorly due to increase in import of motor spirit, gas, oil, and imported motorcycles and tricycles.
Stood at 13.3 trillion naira, with the export component of feed as 5,130.30 billion naira, while imports was 8,153.79 billion. So from common economics, when import exceeds exports, you are recording a negative trade balance.
In terms of exports, Nigerian export trade was mainly dominated by crude oil, which amounted to 4.026 billion naira of total exports in the third quarter. Now, India, Spain, other three countries' top exporters trade as China leads on import trade. The import trade hits 8.2 trillion naira against 5.1 trillion naira export trade. That is for Nigeria in the just concluded quarter. And just yesterday, the National Bureau of Statistics revealed that Nigeria recorded 3 trillion naira negative foreign trade balance in that quarter. This data is our focus today. What are the implications, and can it be better explained? Well, I have joining me an economist, Professor Ken Ife, to break it down for us. Professor, you're welcome to Business Express.
Thank you for having me.
Well, it's a staggering, over 3 trillion naira in the negative balance. Is it something that was coming, that you saw coming?
Actually, there's a bad news part of it, and there's also a good news part of it. The good news part of it is that our trade has recovered to pre-COVID level. We're actually doing better than the pre-COVID level. But the sad one is that we are doing it at the expense of, we're just not balancing our books. To have a deficit of 3 trillion is something, is very, very serious. It means we have to look into the details. First of all, if we continue at this rate, we might end up in 12 months at 50 trillion, which is about $120 billion in import and export, total trade. It's good news because our economy is expanding, but we are suffering in consequence. So when you look at what is actually being imported, you'll find that petroleum, as you saw, petroleum products and spirits, they're all over 90% of what is being imported. And that's not fair, because we also look at our export. It's also predominantly about 90% of what is being exported is still petroleum products and gas products. So we have to break that jinx. We have to, because that is where the subsidy issue comes in. You know, we just, you see, the growth there is about 17% more on the petroleum product. And the thing is that once you continue to subsidize consumption, people will continue to increase the demand for that. Whether it's legal or illegal, there are prices that there's free money somewhere.
Yes,
and
because I was going to ask that this increase in now over 1 trillion naira from 782 billion naira. It's
that's 34% increase. 34% increase. And then in fact, if you look at the gas oil, 48% increase. So all of these areas, it will continue to increase until something is done about the level of subsidy that is driving it. And then why it's difficult is because you have processing capacity in the country in 4 or 5 refineries owned by government that is not working. You're paying salaries. And then you have modular ones that need to come in, 75 licenses, only 2 are coming on. So we're all waiting for Dangote to come and stop all this.
Well, do we all have to wait for Dangote to come?
That is unfortunate, but that's the reality. We could do more. In fact, every month we spend over $100 billion naira on subsidy. But 3 months subsidy, which is 300 billion, could actually build 10 refineries, modular refineries, and stop all the imports. But we haven't got to that stage yet. But it's something that we need to do. But let me draw your attention to some other aspects. If you look at the breakdown of who we are exporting to and who we are importing from, you see India as the most efficient customer that we have. India, we are exporting $758 billion to India, and we're importing 710. So that matches. We need to balance our book with each of our major trading partners.
Yes, because I also noticed
Netherlands is not too far, because we are giving them 242 billion, and we are also buying 432 billion from. It's not too far, but China is just out of control. We can't have 2.44 trillion naira import from China and nothing to write home about on our export. We need to balance our book per customer, per country.
I was going to ask you about these China imports, because basically it's like the scare of Nigeria being a dumping ground is what is happening here. We're just collecting and collecting, and we are not exporting to China.
Well, it's very unfortunate. But you see, the central bank has actually made a lot of effort. Remember, during the currency swap arrangement, all kinds of effort to ensure that we can reasonably, bring China's trade under control, and also reduce the amount of money we are spending on transaction costs. When you are going for dollar to convert to, and the pressure on our forex is more to do with what they're importing from China than anything else. What's going on the black market, the reckless import. And a lot of the things are also substandard goods that are injurious to our health, and then many of them are dumped. For example, textile. You see what textile is doing to the country. We've wiped out over 2 million jobs from textile because of the cheap imports that we have of garments and textile materials, and yet we're a producer of cotton. This country is a major producer of cotton, and we're still exposed to those shocks.
Okay, now we've seen all sort of efforts to boost a trade, non-oil trade, particularly on exporting them. The AFCFTA is at hand. But with these figures we have now, how will you relate it with the clamor for Africa to trade with herself, when in the first place we are majorly exporting crude oil and we're importing the value added?
I think the wisdom would be for us to begin to seek out potential substitute suppliers from Africa for a lot of the imported stuff for us. And on the other hand, also try to increase our export capacity and competitiveness, so that we can produce products that can be actually exported to the other African countries. We are not going to be exporting raw cocoa and raw palm oil and raw granite to these countries. We have to export finished products, and those finished products still have to meet the standard required by WTO, because and also comply with the rules of origin in the case of AFCTA, because what we have in West Africa rules of origin is needs to be realigned with West Africa. But at the end of the day, we still have to focus on building our productive capacity and the competitiveness, and build the quality infrastructure required for the product to be fit for the purpose and to be exportable in terms of quality and meeting conformity assessment requirements. If we don't do that, we are still going to be going around in circle. You cannot, the cocoa and all the beans that we are rejected from Europe over 5 years now, you can't say, oh, we're now going to be sending them to Botswana to process for us. No, that's not going to work.
Okay, so Prof, before I let you go now, are we likely to see a sort of deviation from the statistics we have now when this fourth quarter wraps up?
No, I think the fourth quarter is actually the season, the Christmas season. It's the buying season. So all the importers are spending their money importing all kinds of things to dump on the Christmas season. So I could see that go up, the gap widen, and we haven't been able to correct the asymmetry in the oil and gas import-export and all that. We haven't corrected that. So I see that figure rising and then pushing us to a very dangerous end. I think we could do better than what we have.
Okay, thank you, Prof. Always throwing the lights and giving us insight into these issues. Professor Kenife, thank you for coming on the program.
Thank you very much.
Okay. We move on now. The Federal Inland Revenue Service, FIRS, has collected 4.9 trillion naira in tax revenue from January 2021 to date, of which non-oil tax accounts for 23%. Executive Chairman of the service, Mohammed Nemi, disclosed these at a national symposium on taxation in Abuja, and Benny Adams has the details.
It is a gathering of public and private sector financial managers, and the conversations center on tax administration with focus on reforms, raising capital for infrastructure development, as well as considering ways of improving the ease of doing business and survival of MSMEs amid COVID-19 shocks.
Some stories abound about how businesses relocate to other West African countries using the ECOWAS treaties and all that to come back into Nigeria. But guess what we lose? We lose the personal income tax, we lose the corporate income tax, and we lose other things as well.
I'm glad to note that the FIRS non-oil tax collections for 2020 and the collections so far in 2021 is higher than the tax from oil.
For the FIRS management, they believe that for the country to achieve meaningful and sustainable growth in tax revenue, there is need for continuous reform of operations and processes.
There is also the need to comprehensively bring all the national and subnational revenue sources into consideration to properly and appropriately determine the correct and meaningful tax to GDP ratio for the country.
Organizers say at the end, recommendations reached will be put to use for sustainable growth.
Next is our Surviving COVID-19 series as put together by Musa Abubakar.
Surviving COVID-19 series is brought to you in partnership with the Central Bank of Nigeria.
My name is Avenaga Love, a 24-year-old entrepreneur, an African gifts shop, inspired art pieces, Afrocentric pieces, made out here for people to have the reach, to be able to reach out. I make most of them myself, and few of them I have people that they make them, and then I just go, I get them. I started this business with, I think, 8,000 naira, and I've made over I've made over 875,000. It was COVID that actually made me think of these things. COVID, a lot of people will tell you they experienced a change while at home. They have this awakening, this self-awareness. So my own awareness was, I learned accessory making, when I came back from London. I traveled and then came back. 2015, this was what I learned. I learned how to make accessories, earrings, but then there was COVID, and then oh no, companies are losing money and all of that. So it just made me sit down home and say, what can I do? So I went to the market. I only had 8,000. I remember. I went to the market, got everything. I had little. And then I used, did what I could do. First sales, I made 10,000, just 10,000. First time I sold. My aunt and her husband, because of my aunt, then she was encouraging me, you can do better, and look at me. I heard people say, oh my gosh, they gave me government loan, but then I don't know how the procedure, so I just left it. And you didn't ask. People won't tell you, this is Nigeria. I wouldn't mind, because I actually need a loan. I need more infrastructure. I need more workmanship. I need people to, join hands. Most of them I did it myself. I only have few people I'm working with.
Surviving COVID-19 series is brought to you in partnership with the Central Bank of Nigeria.
Nigeria is unrelenting in its commitment to building a more robust and resilient economy that is less dependent on oil and reliant on its own goods. Minister of State, Industry, Trade and Investment, Mariam Katagum, gave the federal government's policy stance at the opening of the maiden edition of the Enjoy Nigeria Expo holding in Abuja. Boss Day Abel reports.
and Investment and the Ministry of Information, with the theme "A Future Assured Through Cultural Creativity" seeks to attract more investors to the Nigerian economy.
It is pertinent to note that the Nigerian economy, under the leadership of President Muhammadu Buhari GCFR, has now been fully diversified away from oil and gas. A lot of nations in the world actually survive on their cultural heritages.
That we've formed a platform for all categories of businesses, promote their goods and services.
INEX 2021 is also a platform to draw the attention of the world to Nigeria's untapped sectors that include creative, cultural, entertainment, and tourism.
We felt that, of course, if we initiate an expo, a platform, then we'll be able to draw those the world doesn't know from the rural area. And that can only happen when we have a platform of this nature and join Nigeria Expo.
More than 10 states have indicated interest to participate at the expo, where various made in Nigeria products will be on display.
Let's now take a trip to the commodities market. Now we move to the capital market, where Nigerian stocks are trading in the red. They're opening red after recording a 0.38% loss yesterday. Hong Kong, Japan stocks jumped more than 1% after Wall Street rallies on Omicron optimism. Details with Nneka Oko.
Stocks across the globe are bouncing back from Monday losses on optimism that the Omicron variant risk might not be as bad as feared. In Asia, Hong Kong's Hang Seng Index was up about 2.3% as casino and property stocks rose. However, mainland Chinese stocks were subdued, with the Shanghai Composite lower at 0.02%, while Japan's Nikkei 225 jumped 1.89%. U.S. stock indices jumped early morning Tuesday after a rebound from a roller coaster week as investors looked past the potential impact from the Omicron coronavirus variant. Futures on the Dow Jones Industrial Average advanced, just as S&P 500 and Nasdaq 100 also recorded gains. European stocks are expected to open in mixed territory on Tuesday. The UK's FTSE index is seen opening 10 points lower by 1.54% at 7,230. Investors in Africa are weighing new developments relating to the Omicron COVID variant, and markets are expected to follow the positive sentiment elsewhere as the trading day kicks off this morning. Nneka Oko, Business Express.
Thank you, Nneka, and this is where we end the program this morning. We value feedback, so keep the comments, observations, and suggestions coming. Be informed that all previous episodes are available on YouTube on the NTA's channel. Business Express returns Wednesday by 3 p.m. I'm Leah Kating Babatunde saying stay safe out there.